Okay, hello everyone and welcome. We're so glad you give us a bit of your time today, especially given the new and unique demands on many schedules as we adjust to new ways of working. I know for myself, these recent weeks have certainly underscored the importance of community, and that's really what we're trying to foster with this series of community practice webinars, looking to bring together the very best of what's happening among our SharpCloud users and really allow everyone to benefit from that. So we're so glad you could join us. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before we dive into our agenda. For those of you who may be new to Zoom webinars, you should have a toolbar at the top or bottom of your screen where you'll see a Q&A module. This is where we'd love you to drop any questions you have during the webinar so we can be sure that we give Charlie a chance to answer them once he finishes walking through his story. We'd also like to take a moment to do a quick poll just to see what the experience level in the room is regarding SharpCloud. So I'm going to open up a poll on the screen. You'll see it appear, and it's just one quick question with a few different options for you to choose from, and we'd love for you to complete that. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so to get that done. Great, I see those responses coming in. Thank you so much. Okay, just a few more seconds for anyone who wants to participate. Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up. And it looks like we have about 23% of the folks in the room, almost a quarter of the folks in the room who have never seen or used SharpCloud before today. So that's exciting. I'm glad that you're going to get to see something as amazing as Charlie's story for your first exposure. And to those who have been exposed to SharpCloud before, who have used it, even all the way up to using it as an enterprise solution, we hope that you're going to find something new and unique today in what Charlie's going to present. I'm sure that you will. So just a quick run through our agenda. Charlie is going to share his story with you on communicating a connected story in SharpCloud, and then we will have time for questions and answers and some roundup discussion. But before I turn it over to Charlie, just wanted to give you a little bit of background on him. Charlie Booth is an APM qualified mechanical design engineer with experience in the shaping and development of organizational strategic focus areas. Over the past 3 years, he's actively defined and driven the 3 main initiatives of the Oil and Gas Technology Center's Marginal Developments Solution Centre, the MDSC, including reviewing the scenarios for the tieback of future concept. He's also engaged with technology developers and delivered technology projects that contribute to these initiatives, many in the area of energy integration. Charlie has engineering experience in the nuclear decommissioning and automotive R&D industries, including 2 industrial-sponsored university projects in emissions control and reduction. Charlie has designed and implemented the SharpCloud story for the OGTC MDSC and has used it to present at internal stakeholder events as well as supported its use at large external conferences. Thank you so much, Charlie, for being with us today, and I'm excited for you to share your story with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that that introduction. I thought it was very well written, and then I remembered that I'm the one that wrote it and sent it to you. So
very well done.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen, I think, like that. Is that popping up?
Looks great, Charlie. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, hello everybody. I hope you're all keeping healthy and safe and sane in the current situation that we all find ourselves in. Certainly a very strange and unique one. Sort of related to that, I am currently presenting this from the Highlands of Scotland. So if the internet gets a little bit patchy, I apologize in advance. This is a very internationally held webinar because I think I'm in Scotland, Madeline is in Stockholm, and Elissa is in Michigan, I believe. So yes, a very international collaboration for this webinar. So I'll leave sort of a few points for folk to ask questions sort of as I go along. I'll try and sort of break it up. I won't spend the full hour talking straight at you. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the Oil and Gas Technology Centre and the Marginal Development Solution Centre, not because I'm arrogant enough to believe they exist at the centre of the universe, but because what we use our SharpCloud story for is really telling the story of the OGTC and the MDSC. We find it's a really, really great tool for that. So I'll just go ahead and jump straight into it. So what you can see in front of you is the story that we've created over about 3 years. And what the Oil and Gas Technology Centre is, it's a government-funded organization. So it's a not-for-profit organization that funds new technology in the oil and gas space. We came out of the back of the Wood review that was done after the oil price crashed a few years ago, and there was a need to get sort of new technology onto the market to make oil and gas operations cleaner, more efficient, and more cost effective. So what we use SharpCloud for is a lot of like presentation type work. So we go around and we speak to a lot of different companies, small technology developers through to large operators, through to government. And we use this to try and explain sort of who we are and what we do. So what I'll do is I'll step through this and I'll concentrate more on the elements of SharpCloud that you can see in front of you and how we've done that. So to start with, what you can see in front of you is just the generic company set of slides that that we have, that I've just embedded in SharpCloud itself. And then, you know, we can talk a little bit about our goals. The OGTC, we're £180 million of government funding over 10 years from the Aberdeen City Region deal. So we have a real focus on new technologies for the oil and gas space, predominantly in the North Sea, because that's of the greatest economic value for the UK. And we invest in various areas, from problems that are causing issues today through to transformational technologies, such as hydrogen, that we see the oil and gas industry really contributing to in the future. And we're very impact driven. We want to generate about 10 to 15 billion pounds of GVA, gross value add, to the UK economy. And a whole load of, and you know, I'm not going into these slides in any great detail because I don't think that's the interesting thing, but it's just to show you how we sort of utilize SharpCloud itself. We have various different sort of departments, you could call them, within the organization. So I work within the Solution Centre. So we have 7 solution centres, which I'll go into more detail on in just a moment. We have our Tech Accelerator, which is sort of for small new startup companies in the oil and gas space. We have the National R&D Centres, done in collaboration with the University of Aberdeen and Robert Gordon University up here in Aberdeen. And then we have our Culture of Innovation kind of department that looks at the sort of new and upcoming directions that we think the oil and gas industry should be going into. So the solution centres themselves are all areas that there are, you know, inherent challenges within the Oil and Gas Technology Centre. So decommissioning, for example, there's a huge desire to mitigate costs within the decommissioning section of the oil and gas industry. And a lot of what they're looking into there is not just lowering costs, but also looking at circular economy as well. So what can we reuse to turn what we see as sort of valueless assets into sort of value-adding solutions for the oil and gas industry. But the one that I'll concentrate on today is marginal developments, which is the area that I work in. So what we've done here with SharpCloud is that we have embedded a lot of different reports. So Power BI, for example, we have a load of really fantastic data analysts that take sort of our central CRM Dynamics database and create a lot of really powerful Power BI dashboards. Unfortunately, the issue with that is that whenever we use it in a PowerPoint presentation, we always take screenshots. And obviously, as soon as you've taken a screenshot, it's then out of date. So SharpCloud is actually one of the only systems that allows us to show the dashboards live in real time. So you can see here a sort of marginal developments, specific dashboard looking at the amount that we've invested, the amount of approved projects we have. But you can also see that for across the OGTC as well, so incorporating all the other solution centers as well. So when we're out and about going around chatting to different companies, we can give a broad overview of the OGTC. So we've got about 237 approved projects at the moment, and I know that's accurate because it's taken straight from our database. We've invested about 56 million, and we've also co-invested about 149 million pounds, taking in kind from industry as well towards our projects, which is a very, very big deal for us. And we've also, again, taken straight from our reception system. We've had about 24,000 visitors to our little office up in Aberdeen over the last 3 years, which is actually quite a high footfall. So when we're trying to show how connected we are to the local community and the industry, really great numbers to show. But this is all completely live, so I know this is up to date. So SharpCloud makes it really easy to embed dashboards like that, even if it's not sort of formally linked, which is really useful for us. So sort of just moving on here, one of the things that we often get asked is, what are marginal developments and why are you going after them? So this is actually quite an old slide now, but I think it demonstrates the point really well. So within the North Sea, there are a lot of discoveries of oil and gas that haven't been developed yet because basically the technology does not exist to make them economic. It would cost more money to develop them than you would get back. So that's especially important when you have a low oil price like we do at the moment. But they're small in size, but large in overall volume. The Oil and Gas Authority estimates that it's worth about £135 billion to the UK economy if we can get all the oil and gas out of the ground that's in the North Sea. So that number in itself is a huge prize that's worth going after. The issue at the moment is that they're marginal due to technology constraints. So what we do is we look at strategies and initiatives and individual technologies look to try and bring those costs down. Obviously, oil and gas is a slightly controversial subject at the moment, for good reason. Obviously, we're all trying to lessen our environmental impact and find new sources of energy, which I'll talk a little bit about later on. But one thing that's cool about SharpCloud that I can do here is that you can embed certain websites that you use to sort of make your point known. So what I've done here is that I've embedded a website called Drax Energy Insights, which I think is a really cool website. It's nice and interactive, and it shows the source of electricity for the UK. So this is just electricity. This is not gas heating or the gas on if you've got a gas hob at home. This is just electricity. And what you can start to do is start to play around with the dates. So if we look back over the last kind of 3 months, we can see where the electricity for the UK came from. And we can see there's quite a lot of wind power in here. That's the sort of blue label down there, which again you can turn on and off should you choose. I mean, that's up to about 40% there. That's really good, really, really impressive. However, if you look at about there, that big pink area is gas. So that's normally combined cycle gas turbines. But that's 55% of the UK's electricity at that point came from gas. If you include coal in that as well. So that's 60%, over 60%. On the 23rd of January at 9:46 came from fossil fuels. So there's a real desire to transition to new types and cleaner types of energy, but that transition is not going to happen overnight. So what we need to do is we still need to develop oil and gas fields within the UKCS to generate income for the UK, but also to power what we do, because we are just not there yet. But this website, it's not OGTC, so it's third party, it's unbiased. And I've brought this up sort of several times in presentations that I've done, just because it really helps get the point across on what we're trying to do. And again, this is not something that you could really do as well, I think, in Microsoft PowerPoint. I still think that's a great program, and a lot of people use it incredibly well. But I do find that I think PowerPoint is the sort of expected way of doing these presentations. So when you use something like SharpCloud, you just get a little bit more attention somehow. I think a lot of people are maybe slightly bored of PowerPoint in a lot of cases, because it's not always the best system to use. And I think it's got perhaps a stigma around being quite formal. And whereas I think what SharpCloud allows you to do is just be a bit freer and a bit a bit less structured, which I quite like. I think it gives a more relaxed presentation style, although you might disagree with that. And then if we sort of keep going down to strategy, when we're talking about sort of what OGTC is trying to deliver, we have a set of roadmaps on our website that we always direct people to. And when we use this in a PowerPoint presentation, we have to take a screenshot and show that, and that's fine. However, that's slightly unfortunate, because these are actually interactive roadmaps. So this again is an embedded website that I've put into a SharpCloud panel, and you can see that as you hover over these, you can get more background on what it's actually discussing, and then you can also bring up YouTube videos as well.
Oil and Gas Technology Centre.
So that's Colette Cohen, our CEO, chatting about our roadmap in general. And you can show that to people and make sure that they get the understanding, and then direct them to the place on the website so they can go and view the information whilst having the understanding there that you've given them. So I find that sort of really powerful and so easy to do within SharpCloud itself. And you can also embed other presentations from other parts of your business if you think that it's relevant. So our Net Zero Solution Centre that was opened last year at Offshore Europe, I have some information from them. So they're looking at reducing the environmental impact from oil and gas operations in the North Sea, and they sort of work across all the other solution centres, including ourselves. But obviously very topical at the moment. So I've got roadmaps in here from them that I can discuss if you get the question on it as well. But it's also there if you just didn't want to use it. So what SharpCloud allows you to do is have all the material here that you'd want to use, and then you can pick whether you use it or not. The other use that we've found for SharpCloud, which is slightly unique probably, we have a room in our office in Aberdeen called our Innovation Hub, and in that room we have a 6 meter by 2 meter touchscreen, which looks fantastic, and SharpCloud looks fantastic on it. So that's me standing on the right hand side. For reference, I'm about 6'1". The 1 is very important. And we've done a lot of workshops and presentations in that room using SharpCloud, and it just looks fantastic. It doesn't come without its challenges, though. As I said, it's a touch screen, this screen down here, and the eagle-eyed viewer would have noticed that our view icons down the left-hand side, the top 5 of them are repeated at the bottom to help those who are slightly shorter get to the views that they want. And so quite a unique sort of challenge there, but it does look very impressive, and especially when you're trying to show a story as connected as ours, which I'll get to a bit later on. So I think I've been speaking now for whatever that is, 15 or so minutes. Were there any sort of questions that have popped up as I've been chatting away?
Not so far, Charlie, but I do want to encourage everybody to remember to click on that Q&A module if you have questions for Charlie to answer as he goes along here.
Cool. I'll just crack on then. So after we've sort of been through this sort of introduction view, I told people about the OGTC and the Marginal Development Solution Centre and what we do, so they've got an understanding. We can then start to step through the other views, which sort of get a lot more strategic and a lot more specific for the Marginal Development Solution Centre. So we can sort of start at the top with our sort of aspirations, 50% cost reduction being a major one. So what was discovered quite early on is that cutting costs in the oil and gas industry by, sort of 10-20% is great, but won't really make a material difference. You've got to cut them by at least 50% if you really want to unlock that 135 billion pounds of stranded assets. Also time as well. So trying to reduce the time it takes to develop sort of subsea tiebacks within the industry, again, really important. And that sort of feeds down into a set of key objectives. And all this, by the way, we've had in place for about the last 3 years. And we have used this sort of strategic roadmap to guide our thinking in the direction that we go in and the technologies that we ultimately fund. So then sort of stepping down sort of a few steps further, you can see how the aspirations and the key objectives line up with the set of objective enablers that we've come up with as well, and feed down into the initiative level, which is sort of the main level that we communicate and that we work at. So so to start with, we've got our tieback of the future initiative, and sort of behind here we have a load of material about the initiative itself. And obviously you can talk to this and you can tailor it depending on who you're talking to. So the tieback of the future was really based around this concept of a circular economy. And if you're speaking to people that know what a circular economy model is, then that's great. But if you find out that they're perhaps not, you can, for instance, play a YouTube video from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which takes it right back to basics and tells you exactly what a circular economy is. And then from there you can go on. You can actually run the entire thing. We have a YouTube video that has some terrible music. but then talks through exactly what the initiative is. And you can obviously leave it on so that the background voice explains it, or you can talk to it yourself. Again, it's just so easy to do, to embed a YouTube video into SharpCloud, certainly far more easier that I've found than trying to do it from PowerPoint presentation. And you know, it looks very good, it looks very slick. And then sort of moving on from there, you can then talk about the project in general, go through this if you decide to. And I think the point is, when you've got all this material here, you can pick what direction it goes in. So you're talking about the fishing industry, for example, and our interaction with them. These are fishing trawler boards, an experiment looking at how they interact with pipelines. Again, just an embedded YouTube video. But you can go down that route if you think that the audience would benefit from that. I'm not just talking a whole lot of fluff here. We have used SharpCloud for a number of external conference events. So this was taken from the Subsea Expo back in 2018 in the old Aberdeen Exhibition and Conference Centre. We ran the entire session off of SharpCloud. So that's our presentations and a whole load of presentations from external technology developers as well. It worked really well. People were really engaged. We actually hit the health and safety limit for number of people in the room. So we were having to turn people away at the door because we were literally so full. And we got a lot of really good feedback from it. And I think that some of it was actually, you know, using SharpCloud to go through it in the way that I'm going through it with you now. So that's one of our initiatives. That's the oldest one, Tie Back of the Future. And you can see quite easily how linked that is to everything else on here. So we've got a few work themes that feed into it, as well as it feeding out to a lot of our objective enablers as well. Our sort of second oldest initiative is Facility of the Future. So what would the oil and gas platform of the future look like if indeed it was a platform at all? And again, we use the SharpCloud at the Subsea Expo event in 2018 as well. So, you know, there's some footage of that there. We've got some people plugging it on here if you decide to show them that. And a whole load of sort of presentation study material if you wanted to explain, you know, what it was about. So this study, for example, is about trying to design a new type of sort of floating offshore NUI, so normally unmanned installation, that uses sort of remote control features. Normally it should be unattended so that it's sort of completely automated. And obviously, yeah, depends on the type of audience that you're speaking to, and hopefully is powered by maybe renewable energy instead of the standard diesel generators that are found on installations at the moment. And then our final initiative, which sort of ties Tie Back to the Future and Facility of the Future together, is energy integration, which is very topical at the moment for obvious reasons. So what this is talking about is, you know, can we as the oil and gas industry combine with other offshore renewable energy industries to sort of lower our costs, but also our environmental impact. So can we power our offshore facilities with wind farms, for example? Very topical for Aberdeen, because the first electrical generator from wind was invented in Merrykirk, which is about 30 miles southwest of Aberdeen, back in 1887. And then in 2017, you had the Highwind floating offshore wind turbine system up in Peterhead. And then in 2018, the Aberdeen Bay wind farm, some of the largest offshore wind turbines in the world. I think one revolution of that will power the average UK home for about 27 hours. And hopefully it's going to be providing Aberdeen's about 75% of Aberdeen's energy supply when they get fully up and running. But we also have wave energy, for example. So this is the Ocean Power Tech wave energy production buoy that is currently being tested in the North Sea. So that's a wave powered device. You also have tide and currents, so ECOG. So this is something that sits on the seabed and generates sort of small electrical currents that can then power subsea equipment, lessening the load on very long umbilicals from platforms powered by diesel generators. And once again, you can see SharpCloud being used here in our first ever Tech 20 video. So these are events that we'd run at our office. I think now we're running them remotely. So they're just presentations on interesting subjects that try and inspire people. So this was one of the first ones that we did. So this is Chris Pearson, who's currently a director of the National Subsea Centre, presenting on SharpCloud itself on our big screen that I showed you earlier. So, huge number of applications that we found for SharpCloud itself. And then stepping sort of again through the story, we can then link it up to all of the projects that we have funded within the Marginal Developments Solution Centre. And you can see that each one sort of links into an initiative or a work theme. These are technology projects, the ones in grey. The ones in red are studies that we have run so that we can use sort of unbiased engineering judgment in what technology we choose to fund and where the big size of the prizes really are. So all of our thinking is completely justified. So you can take, say, this one, for example. So this is the ECOG Subsea Power Hub. So it links into Time Back to the Future and energy integration. And then behind this, we've got a whole lot of material for each project, including sort of slides and YouTube videos as well. So once again, you can tailor your presentation depending on your audience and what you want to talk them through. And obviously, I know you can set up SharpCloud to sort of go through presentations in very much a sort of more rigid format, and I think it works really well. What we found is that we quite like the free-flowing nature of SharpCloud, just sort of running through it and sort of controlling it on the fly. And then obviously each of these projects will have a certain amount of data associated with it. So each of them will have, say, a value in them for the amount that we are funding them, but also the amount of industry support we are getting. So that's sort of benefit in kind. That's really important to us. It's one of our stipulations when the OGTC was created, that our 180 million would be matched by industry as both cash and benefit in kind. So what you can see here is for our tech hopper projects, our funding, the orange bar, is less than the industry support, the green bar. So that's really good, and it's really great being able to show that. And then obviously you can click on any of these bar charts and go down and see which ones are the main contributors there. So a very sort of interactive way to show sort of overarching Solution Centre finances. And then on like the timeline view as well, you can set when projects sort of start and finish, or indeed you can do this for an individual project to sort of break out the various milestones within that project itself. But you can see that they're still linked up. So we've got, phase 1 of ECOG flowing into phase 2 of ECOG, and link up in whatever way you'd like, and then you can start filtering and chopping and splicing the data as you see fit. And then what you end up with when you sort of pull all of that together, you end up with something that looks like this. Now, I quite like showing this view, not because you can glean any detail from it, and certainly a lot of people don't like it. They say that all the dots make their eyes go funny. But I really like showing it because I think it's a very impactful view, and it shows sort of how much work is going on at the OGTC. I mean, this is just one department, remember. But I think also because if you can see the sort of general feel of it is that all the dots are sort of going from the bottom up to the top. So what we can see here is that we've got the supply chain here, which is a mixture of everything from small technology developers to really large engineering design houses, being supported and guided by operators and industrial bodies and academia to submit sort of technology ideas to us that we then filter and decide on based on all of these studies that we've done and the knowledge that we have, to take these ideas through to sort of what we call opportunity level, to then shape the project to turn into technology projects that help deliver our work themes and initiatives that help us meet our objective enablers, that then roll up into our key objectives that then help us meet our aspirations, both for the Marginal Development Solution Centre and the overarching Oil and Gas Technology Centre. And I think that view, once you've walked through it and then shown the entire thing, helps people understand sort of what we do and why we do what we do, which is sometimes a difficult thing to tell, we find anyway. And I think that SharpCloud does that really, really well. So that's sort of it from the presentation side of it. I sort of ran through it a bit in a bit of a wanna because there didn't seem to be any questions, but I think a few questions have come through. I don't know if I can answer any of those at the moment.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. I do encourage everyone else, if you have questions about what Charlie has shown you, how he achieved this in SharpCloud, please do make sure you put your questions into the Q&A module. I'll go through a couple now, Charlie, if you don't mind, that have come through. Sure. So we had the first question is, what's the percentage of data you link to SharpCloud in comparison to embedded data within the panels? So kind of how are you bringing data in, and what percentage of that is showing up in SharpCloud this way?
So in terms of sort of actual data, so you have a lot of like the financial numbers, for example, and the dates in there for each project. That's all data. At the moment, it's sort of manually entered, but we are looking at ways to automate it. I think SharpCloud have done a lot of work on automating sort of data input. So you can link it through sort of spreadsheets on SharePoint online. You can link them to CRM databases and stuff like that. So that is something that we are looking into to automate the process. In terms of the panels themselves, so that's actually a good point that I didn't cover. You'll have noticed, or the eagle-eyed viewer will have noticed that a lot of the presentation material in here, that is a PowerPoint slide that has been turned into an image. Now, the reason that we've done that, there is method to our madness there. if you imagine that we go around a lot of sort of big companies, operators within the oil and gas sector, a lot of them have real constraints on sort of their internet, basically. So what having the image in there allows us to actually save that image within the story itself. And then we've got the offline version of SharpCloud that we can bring up even if we don't have any internet connection. And obviously we can't get things like the YouTube videos and the embedded dashboards, but we've still got most of our material in there that we can go through. So that's sort of why we've done that. So a lot of these will just be images. So PowerPoint presentations we've turned into static images and put in here. But there is a reason that we've done that. And that's actually very, very quick and very easy to do, to just chuck a whole presentation in there. So yeah, that's the reasoning behind that.
That's great, thank you. I think this is one of the first stories I've seen that has utilized the embedding capabilities so much, and has really leveraged the ability of SharpCloud to be a one-stop shop for your presentation needs. And I love that you mentioned the fact that you can be very agile as you're doing your presentation, kind of letting the conversation drive the presentation versus the other way around. Or forcing something.
It does give a lot of opportunity to go off on massive tangents if you're not careful. But I think that's quite nice in a lot of ways, because I've been to a lot of presentations where it's very sort of static, and it all goes in a certain direction, and that's dictated by your PowerPoint presentation. I suppose I quite like the sort of free-flowing nature of using SharpCloud to present. But obviously that does come with challenges.
Of course, yeah. And we've heard from a lot of folks that it allows them to be much more consultative with their audiences, and allowing them to be more engaged and participate. So I appreciate you showing us that. The other questions that have come through are largely around data linking, so which you've somewhat covered there. So it sounds like you don't currently have any Excel spreadsheets linked to SharpCloud, but you are just entering things in manually for the most part?
We are at the moment, and it's sort of the biggest area that I would like to improve. So if you imagine that this story has been sort of created over a period of about 3 years, and when I first was using SharpCloud, for some reason our SharePoint had certain security protocols in place that meant we couldn't link it up. But we've changed our sort of system more recently, which means that we can. The problem is this is already all made, and it requires just a little bit of time to set up properly. But if I was making a story from scratch now, I would definitely try and link it to sort of an Excel spreadsheet or a database, because it would make things a lot faster. And there's a lot of capability within SharpCloud to do that. So anyone sort of making a story, I think it's sort of a 50-50. I would do a bit of planning sort of up front, so you can decide what you want the story to do, with the kind of data that you want to input, the kind of use that you want it to have. But there's also another element of just powering in, creating something, using it, and then making changes to it later on. But yeah, if I was creating a story from scratch now, I would definitely try and be a bit more clever with the actual input of data.
So one of the questions that's come through is asking about whether or not you're using it as a data management system, in your view, or a collaboration tool as well as a presentation tool. Would you say that data management and collaboration come into play in the way that you use your story?
I think that certainly collaboration definitely does. So when we've got, say, new starts that have joined the company that want to know sort of about the Marginal Development Solution Centre, we can sort of give them access to this, and they can go through it in their own time, and then come and ask us any sort of specific questions that they have. We also have our innovation network within the OGTC, And they have their own densely populated SharpCloud story that has a lot of great information in there that's in there for the interest of OGTC employees, so that we can be aware of what's going on out there, certainly centered around the sort of the transformative thinking in the academic kind of world. So, and we use this a lot at workshops as well. So not just for presenting, but we'll have it like open in sort of one of our touchscreens in a workshop, so that people can go and step through it, have a look at any information that they particularly want to look at, and then come and back into the discussion, having hopefully learned a little bit. We probably don't use it for data management as such, but I think that's more of a lack from probably my side. Again, coming back to the data thing, we don't have a lot of data in here at the moment to manage, but the data is available, and I'm sure that you could do it and do it very well. I think you just have to spend a bit of time in SharpCloud, make sure that you got that right. So have I answered the question there, or have I sort of slyly sidestepped it?
No, I think you did. We got to thank you. So that sounds like you answered it well. Thank you. Another question that came up was, what's your advice for the best way to get off the starting blocks quickly when building your SharpCloud instance? Which is not a surprising question. I think people often look at a very well-developed story like this and think, how do you get from 0 to 100 and come up with a story like this? So do you want to speak a little bit about the enablement process?
Yeah, sure. So like I say, we sort of built up this story over about 3 years. What I would advise, as I sort of touched on earlier, is that you sit down, you have a look through a lot of other stories, and SharpCloud have been very good. They've got a lot of example stories that anyone can view. And so I'd have a look through those and get an idea of what you want the story to do. So are you using it more as like a risk management or a project management, or sort of presentation, or a combination of all three? So have a think about the use case for it, and then a bit of a brainstorm on paper about the overarching structure of the story in terms of categories and sort of data attributes. And then have SharpCloud have also got a lot of really good templates as well. So a lot of the times you might find that one of the templates work really well as a starting point. I think the overarching structure, I think, is important to get right, because everything else in terms of the cutting and splicing and filtering of data is very easy to do. View settings are really easy to create. All the newer sort of annotations that SharpCloud have implemented are really good as well. But that overarching structure, so basically, what would the main categories be? So these ones down the side. So I think those are the thing you want to get first, and then the structure of all this will sort of come at a later date. But I think there's also an element of just going in, trying something and playing with it, and after a while, after you've been using it for a little while, you'll start to see what works and what doesn't, and you can start updating, which you wouldn't really know until you've done it. So there's a little bit of sort of 50-50, I think, a bit of planning and then a bit of just using it and seeing what happens. But editing all of the backgrounds and the colors and the structure and everything like that, once you've got the data in there that you want, is actually very, very easy to do. I think SharpCloud have done a lot of work on making sure that interface is very user friendly. So yeah, that would be my advice.
That's great. I would I would second what you said about planning being very important. You don't want to get too far down the road and find out you've used the wrong structure on your story. To that end, I wanted to let people know that we are offering a series of training webinars coming up for those who'd like to go from the very beginning basic understanding of SharpCloud all the way through to a fairly experienced expert in SharpCloud in just about 2 weeks. So beginning next week, we will have those available. And then the recordings for webinars like this and for some of the other training sessions that we've done can also be found in our academy. So I encourage you, if you do have a SharpCloud license already, to go ahead and check it out there, as well as understanding that you can also ask questions in the academy, where people like Charlie and some of our other power users are experts who are just waiting to answer questions that you might have about how to use SharpCloud, how to set up your story, as well as our staff, of course. And of course, anytime you can always reach out to us if you're curious about how to best structure your story, how to set it up for success. We have a lot of very talented staff who are very happy to walk through that with you. So just doing my little plug there, Charlie. Thanks.
I know that was very slickly done, wasn't it? There was almost like someone set you up for that. Was that question asked by one of your staff members, I wonder?
What was that?
Was that question asked by one of your staff members, I wonder?
It actually wasn't. No, I'm going to say that was a real question.
Yeah, fair enough.
But we'll take it. We'll take the opportunities.
I should point out, by the way, that obviously I can't hear anybody. So if I ever make a joke, I'm assuming that you're all laughing hysterically. So yeah, just point that out.
Absolutely. Well, they're landing well here in Michigan. So
are they? Are they? Excellent.
Yeah. Good. The last question we have is unfortunately not just for you, but it says, if we're not currently SharpCloud users, can we get temporary access to attend the training sessions? And I just wanted to say, Radhika, go ahead and reach out to us at training@sharpcloud.com, and we'd be happy to work with you on how to help you get access to that. I'll also ask Madeline, if you don't mind in the background there, would you mind just popping our events page into the chat? And that's where you would go to register for those training sessions. All the trainings are public, so you don't actually have to have a license to attend those training sessions, but we do recommend that you get set up, if you can, with one to follow along with those training sessions. All right, well, we're coming near the end of our time. Charlie, thank you so much for walking us through. This is an incredible story. You've really done a tremendous job building this out. And clearly it seems to have, from my perspective, brought a lot of value to the OGTC. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great tool to use. It looks really good. It really sort of captures people's attention and their imagination. So yeah, we had an excellent time using it.
That's great to hear. I want to thank everybody for attending. We certainly appreciate your time as always. Madeline has dropped in that link to our events page where you can register for upcoming training sessions. And also wanted to let you know that when you exit the webinar today, there is going to be a brief survey that pops up. As we do more of these public use case webinars and more of our training sessions, we really want to know how we can improve what you're looking for so that we can make sure these are useful to everyone. But I would say this has been a fantastic presentation, and I'm so glad that I've gotten to see it. It always inspires me to see what our users are doing. So thank you so much, Charlie. This was just fantastic.
No, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, just add my piece onto that. Thank you everyone for spending time listening to me drone on. I know these are very strange times at the moment, so I really appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to listen. And as I said at the start, I hope you're all safe and well and staying sane in these very unique times that we find ourselves in. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie, and thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.